I'm the president of the Culver Redevelopment Commission. We're convening our regularly scheduled April 20th, 2020 meeting according to the guidelines set forth in Governor Holcomb's executive orders. We're meeting remotely, recording the meeting. The meeting will be posted on the town website. If you speak during the meeting, you're agreeing to being recorded and that recording being rebroadcast. Just a couple of rules of etiquette. If you're not speaking, and especially if you're on a phone, I would ask that you silence your microphone or your audio so we don't get a lot of feedback disturbance. As we go through the meeting and go through the agenda, each of the items as it's discussed will first be discussed by the commission members, and then I'll open it up to any of the public who are participating for comment or question. With that being said, Paul, could I ask you to take the roll, please?
Certainly. Okay. Rich West.
Present.
Sally Ricciardi.
Present.
Alda Benedictus. Present. Karen Schumann.
Present.
Sue McIntyre.
Present.
Tom Uhas. Tom Uhas.
Hello.
We'll take that as present. All present.
I don't
Okay.
have, I'm not on the web page, just I'm coming through the phone. Am I doing something wrong? I worked the other day.
No, you're fine. It may have just been muted, Tom. You're coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, but I'm on the phone. I don't see anybody. Oh, well, I guess it doesn't matter.
You're lucky because I think mine's the only picture posted.
Oh, okay.
So consider yourself fortunate. At this point, other people are dropping in and out. The one other thing in terms of sort of protocol for the meeting, all of the votes will be done by roll call. And so that being said, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the approval for the minutes. There are two meetings Paul had pointed out that we have not approved the minutes for, and the March 16th, Paul?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we need to approve the minutes for the March 16th meeting and the special meeting on April 2nd. I would appreciate a motion from someone on approving those minutes.
I will make the motion to approve the two meetings.
Right, so motion's been made by Tom Uhas. Is there a second?
Sally Ricciardi, I'll second.
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, Mr. Secretary, would you mind taking the roll?
We'll take a roll call. I'll start with Tom Uhas.
Yes.
Sue McIntyre.
Yes.
Alda Benedictus says yes. Sally Ricciardi.
Yes.
And Rich West.
Yes.
Okay. It is approved unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to the financial reports. Karen provided a copy of the March financial report. Karen, if I remember correctly, you said it still needs some scrubbing, or is it ready for review and approval?
I believe yours is correct. I'm still working through reconciling all the funds though. So it was more provided for information purposes rather than asking for approval at this point.
Okay. All right. So we will pass that at this point. I circulated a copy of the cash flow statement that reflects most of the claims. It doesn't reflect the last two claims that Karen put out, but it is a cash flow statement for April reflecting the claims that had been previously posted. And again, that's just informationally, we don't typically approve that. However, on the claims, since we don't, when we adjourn the meeting, we don't really go into review the claims at that point. I would suggest, or I put them on the agenda here. I think Karen had circulated copies of the claims. And would people like me to read them or review them, or are people comfortable with what was provided earlier on the first version of the claims?
This is Paul. I'm comfortable with what was provided initially, and then Karen's follow-up with the last few claims that came in about needing more information, at least enough to have a motion.
Right. Why don't, if we can deal with those two separately, because I think there may be more discussion on those, the last two claims that were circulated, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, Paul, is there anyone who has questions about the initial claims that Karen circulated? If not, could I entertain a motion to approve those claims?
This is Sue.
Go ahead, Sue.
This is Sue McInturf. I make a motion to approve the claim submitted by Karen earlier yesterday or whatever.
Okay, we'll reference those as the claims copy 1. So we have a motion by Sue, and Paul, was that your second?
I'm seconding it, yes.
Okay. All right, is there any discussion on those claims? If not, we'll move the question. Paul, could you take a roll call, please?
All right, roll call vote. Start with Rich West.
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Paul says yes. Sue?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
The motion is passed.
Okay. Now to the second claim submission that Karen sent out a short time ago, and those are 2 invoices related to the website development that Develop Culver has been working on with the local businesses. And Karen had questions concerning the invoice for Tina Bar, which is the website for the Culver Coffee Company. And apparently part of the package, as reflected in the invoice, is that there's a 3-month, first 3 months of membership. Is that the right term, Karen, I guess?
The hosting.
Hosting. And so that is in question, because there was a question about whether that was what our commitment was to begin with or not. So pending clarification of that and some information on those claims, what I guess if people are comfortable when we get the clarification, so that the vendors don't have to wait for another month to get paid, are we comfortable, once Karen is comfortable with the clarification that is consistent with the program, that we approve or permit me to approve those claims?
I am. This is Sue. Do you want me to make a motion, or do you want a discussion, or what?
But why don't we see if there's other discussion about it first? Is there anyone who has a problem with that or questions about that?
No, Karen's she's got the process, and she'll get the clarification that it's within what we had approved. So I'm fine with it.
Same here.
Okay, so Sue, your motion was to
approve claims, claim submission number 2.
after they've been authorized.
I'm sorry, after Karen has clarified the payment of the Shopify hosting and for it to be signed by Rich West after.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion that's been made. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
So, all right.
So the motion has been made by Sue and seconded by Sally. Paul, did you have a question to clarify the motion?
The question, this motion, is this separate from what Frida's, or is this inclusive of her getting additional information on Frida's invoice as well?
It includes both of the claim. My motion includes both of the claims. I don't think there's a question about Frida's, is there?
Karen, did you have something that was about
No,
Frida's? Because it wasn't.
I'm just looking for some additional information because it's a statement and I'm supposed to be paying off of invoices. So I put in the request.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think,
And Sue's motion covered it. You know, you'll
Yes.
need that information for Frida's as well. Okay.
okay, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I would ask Paul if you could take a roll call on that vote, please.
Certainly. Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Sue?
Yes.
Paul? Yes. Sally?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
Okay. Motion has been passed.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the agenda, town managers report. Jonathan, you're up.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
On stellar updates on the beach lodge, not much has changed. We're still waiting on completion of just a few punch list items, some of the landscaping, and then a final change order deduction amount. If you looked through on the claims, there was kind of a draft of that, and we don't have the exact number from the landscaper yet. Before that's figured, it was around 2,000, I think, but we're expecting a little more than that. At Cavalier Park, I believe all the materials have arrived. We were waiting on door frames there for a while. The restroom concessions building went up pretty quickly. Sidewalks were being poured. I think all the playground equipment was there and was looking pretty good last week. And on NDOT projects, we are about to enter into property acquisition phase for the trail project. There are 10 parcels where we will be acquiring some right-of-way along South Main Street down at the south end of the project. And so that process will get started probably about a week from today. I think that's it on stellar projects, unless anyone has any questions on those. Hearing none, the only other item I had was on the wayfinding project. Osterbond Painting dropped off some color samples for me to approve today. They're in my mailbox. I haven't seen them yet, so I'll stop by Town Hall tomorrow and pick those up and take a look. I think Sue and a few others were on that original committee with me. If I can send a picture that looks okay, I may send that to you guys just to get another opinion. But if those look okay, they should be good to get scheduled here, within the next 3 or 4 weeks, just kind of waiting on the weather and to get a day set. But that should be moving forward here pretty soon.
Great. Perfect. Yes, I'll review the colors if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, I'll text them to you tomorrow.
Okay, any questions for Jonathan? All right, Jonathan, thank you. Moving on, next item on the agenda, old business, MCEDC contract. Looking to see if, Jerry, are you on the call?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. I'd circulated a copy of what you provided, the revised or updated contract with MCEDC and the Culver Redevelopment Commission. It follows basically what we had agreed to back in February, with the exception we're breaking it out as a separate contract and no longer as an addendum to the town contract.
Correct. Do you want me to walk everybody through that really quickly?
I'd suggest, are there questions on it from members of the commission?
Rich, this is Karen. I had one question. It seemed like number 3 and 5 were not accurate. They were both with the same heading, but different payment schedules. So maybe I'm looking at the wrong one.
Sorry, I do not have the document in front of me.
It does seem like it's the same.
Compensation for services, compensation for services.
Right.
It's,
Two are
you know,
the same.
it's. Mhm.
One has quarterly payments, the other has twice a year payment.
Hold on one second so I can get there. Bear
Right,
with-
so,
yep, bear with- Karen, what number was that?
Number 3 and number 5, they both had the heading compensation for payment or for services, sorry.
Yeah, you can omit the second compensation for services. And I'll go ahead and clean that up.
okay, thank you, Karen, for picking that up. So we're deleting,
The date does not, we haven't paid you yet this year, so the one had the February then date in it, so you may want to amend that too, because I wouldn't want us to be non-compliant of a contract that we sign retroactive that has a date.
Hold on one second, March 20. So what I'll do is after you sign today, then I'll put first payment is due after the 20th of March. Let me see. Let me get my dates right. Yep.
20th of April.
April rather.
okay, so with those two revisions made to the contract, are there any other questions or suggestions?
Yes, this is Sue. I'm sorry, did someone else say anything?
I had one more, but go
Go ahead.
Sue. My question is still, how do you define assist lead?
Well,
I
that
believe
was I think that's an error. It should just be lead the initiative, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you assist lead. The wording is vague.
Okay, we can make
My discussion that I remember is that the MCBC would lead the process.
Is
I
that,
agree.
sorry, this is Jonathan. Is that 1D you're talking about, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the three changes of the contract that I hear we're suggesting are the deletion of paragraph 5, the change of the first payment date to reflect the date of this meeting or signature of the contract, and that paragraph D start with lead as opposed to assist lead.
And Rich, there's actually one more. He'll entered into the first date in the date in the first paragraph will need to be changed to.
Yeah.
And I can make those here shortly and get those back to you.
Which date are you referring to, Jerry? Not the June 15th or July date?
The first paragraph, Karen, speaks of when we enter into the agreement.
Okay, okay.
Look at
It
the
says
very
March.
top.
It says March, not April.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Yep, I missed that one too. Okay, so with those revisions to the contract, is there a motion to approve the agreement and authorize me to sign it as revised?
Paul, I had a question for you. You were going to provide a like a spreadsheet of services. Was that for Jerry also?
Oh, I'll be glad to do that once we have the contract approved.
Okay. I didn't know if it needed to be like sample in the contract or not, but
Can I ask a clarifying question on that, Paul?
Yeah,
So are you talking about a way to track progress?
I'm talking about, yeah, it's kind of you have a way of delivering your information anyway. And it just, as we've laid out these targets in, 1A through E, that we just say, as long as your information includes the following, it's kind of what we've done with this develop Culver. Here's the contract, here's what you're tracking to. It helps us all have the same common document to work off for our progress and feedback. And I'll be glad to put something that's approved together. It's approved through CRC and get it to you, because it looks like once we sign this contract, that next meeting in February, in May, you're you're giving us an update.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think it's just a matter of reporting.
Yeah, it is. It's a way of, it's just a matter of, again, it's similar to what we've just done with Develop Culver. It's a way of reporting what we voted on to do, and it's just a way of just tracking it. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question, and I know, Rich, is there a motion? So should I hold my question until after the motion's been?
No, go ahead. Why don't we
Someone-
clarify it now? Right, we can.
Yeah, COVID's throwing everything out of everything out of whack. Jerry, how has it affected, with this contract that we've designed here? How has this affected our ability to deliver and do these things in 2020? Is there something we should be considering as a shift? Because we started this with you well before COVID was even an acronym that people knew.
So with regards to shift, obviously it has shifted. As it relates to Idea Week, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, fine.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody with the other question. So as it relates to Idea Week, this would be the week where those number of activities occur at the University of Notre Dame. Some of them are still occurring, which would be virtual. Obviously, the main events where people gather at the university to participate, that's not going to occur. The judging and the competition with respect to new business ventures, and business plans, that is occurring, and NCDC is still engaged in that. So we'll actually be making a selection to our ward to the 23rd and the 25th, which are, I think, ultimately Thursday, Friday, actually, the 23rd and 24th. So that will occur. I'm not sure what the landscape looks like in terms of students returning to Notre Dame this year in the fall time. I've heard some suggest that it might not occur. I've heard some others suggest that it probably will. So that remains to be fluid as it relates to the plan, the attraction, what I call the attraction plan. That's not going to stop that from being developed. We may still look to see how we implement that. We'll just have to make some modifications on implementation. So that's one update. And, the other update, if I can just add on that, the microloan program, NCDC requested from USDA two things. One of them was to reduce the effective rate of the interest for microloans that were issued in Culver, and we were accepted on that. Actually, effectively, it reduces the interest by 2 points, 2 basis points, moving from a LIBOR from a Wall Street Prime. And then as well, we asked that the new loans be included in a 6-month extension or 180 days, and we were approved on that too.
Okay, and that's very good information. And Jerry, you shared that with the business call on Friday. It really is. It's more a progress report than the contract itself, which I'd like to either focus on or pass and get the revisions made. Paul, do you think? I think we're again talking about the this is paragraph D. Do you think that should be revised or something inserted there saying that?
Rich, my question was to Jerry, since that's a commitment they're making to us, that if it needs to be revised, he should tell us now. If not, let's stay with it. But they're the ones that are he's the one developing the plan that's to be completed by the 15th of June.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see any reason why that plan still can't move forward. It's a matter of developing the attraction piece of that. But I will make note that some of that some of the activities this year will be somewhat delayed, if not as specifically as it relates to the entrepreneurship and those events up in Notre Dame.
Okay, so we're back to the agreement with the I think there are now 4 or 5 revisions to it. Are there other questions about the agreement? Are there any concerns about the agreement, or can we get a motion to approve it and authorize me to sign it as those changes are reflected?
Rich, this is Sally, and I'll make a motion that we approve the MCEDC contract with the 4 revisions that we've discussed.
Okay, thank you, Sally. So there's a motion that's been made to approve that revised agreement. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Paul. I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded to approve the revised MCDC contract and authorize me to sign it on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission. Paul, could you please poll the commission?
Certainly. I'll start with you, Rich.
Yes.
Sally.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Sue.
Yes.
And Tom.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is passed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Paul, just as a follow-up, you may want to send Jerry a copy of the develop Culver progress report, just so we have some idea, or if you don't have time to develop the individual one, I'll leave that to you. But
I'll certainly send him just Jerry, I'll send you something within the next week that kind of highlights what the minimum we want covered. You may want to talk about more, but it's something and it'll be along the lines of what we're using with Develop Culver.
Okay, thank you all. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the TIF Economic Development Bond. We briefly discussed this toward the end of our last meeting. It was put out there just sort of informationally, the results of a discussion that Jonathan and I had with Phil Facenda, the attorney from Barnes and Thornburg that we used. It has gone to the council basically to explore. And so Bill Githens and Bill Clevenger had volunteered, and Karen was drafted to explore further the bond, the necessity for it, and the details of it. So I don't know if there are questions about it. There's really not much information more to support or to report at this point. Jonathan, I don't know if you had anything or.
No, I think just from the conversations with small businesses, we were also kind of interested in seeing if there was any more uptake in the microloan program. And reviewing the grants, we did definitely get some interest. I think a lot of people indicated that on their grant application, but also always noting that the terms were important, what the interest rate was, and if there would be any portion forgiven, or if there is a period where they wouldn't have to pay anything back or anything like that, also makes a big impact on the amount of interest. So.
Okay, any questions on that, or we'll just pass that again, keep it on the agenda for informational purposes at this point? Okay. Danielle is scheduled to do a progress report from Develop Culver on the fire station mural. That contract is moving along. She's working with a couple of the businesses in the website development this evening, so she could not participate in the call, but that is basically moving forward. There's a contract has been signed by Develop Culver. They've reviewed the current proposed sketch or mural and I think it has support from the fire department. And we're moving forward. Again, the timelines on it may be affected by our whole what's happening statewide with the governor's orders. So there's not much new to support on that, except that it's moving forward at a snail's pace, but it is moving forward. Any questions on the fire department mural? I think, Jonathan, have you gotten any feedback? I know Terry and Kyle, I think, had reviewed it with staff as far as I know. And
Yeah, it's been a while. I think the original version, which it may be a little different now than it first came out, but I know they were happy with it originally and appreciated just, having input and being part of the conversation. And everything I had heard so far was positive. So.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody on that? Moving on to new, wait a minute, let's see. I'm sorry. Also under this heading on the progress report from Develop Culver concerning the two projects that we had approved at our last meeting. The first is the website. Paul had developed I don't know if matrix is the right word, or report format for both the website development and also the navigation. And I think Danielle completed both of those, and those were circulated on the website development. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and I also sent out a copy of an email from Dawn. Her website is up and running. She has to fine tune it a little bit. I'd encourage you to go to the link and take a look at it. I thought it was, she's very excited about it, and she's very appreciative and grateful. That same designer is, or will be working, as I understand it, with Liz, MJ, and Angie at this point. So, and the product for Frida's for a full-scale restaurant menu is different. The Shopify one really doesn't fit that. On the Shopify one, if you look at Dawn's website, and in the upper left-hand corner, there's a drop-down menu, literally a drop-down menu, but you can also select the menu that she has from there. So the Frida's product is different. But again, Danielle found a developer who's working with Frida's on that. Any questions on that one? And again, I think all that information was in the written report. I shouldn't just suggest we refer to
Rich,
that.
this is Paul.
Yes.
I appreciate how quickly everybody's moved on this, and it just helps us, especially in this dispersed environment, to be able to talk about things that are little complex, and being able to have a document in front of us, and you can refer back, tell Danielle and Tracy that all they have to do is add to this document going forward. They don't have to write a whole new one. So we're trying to be as minimally invasive into their worlds while they were doing this. MJ's, I thought, withdrew based on Daniel's information. They're not participating, that they're doing it on their own.
Well, it's without getting into violating any HIPAA or other things, that's being reconsidered. I'll just leave it at that.
Fine. Fine.
Yeah, I think she's, and you saw Danielle's earlier email on it. We won't belabor it here, but it is not,
Okay.
we're still offering the support for her if she would like to do it. And she and Danielle are talking about that.
So the only question I have is, are we touching everybody that could be using this? Is the chamber involved, and are the chamber members notified, and are they involved where they may want to take advantage of this as well?
Yes, they were. A lot of the chamber members participated in the Friday afternoon call, and it was discussed at the meeting, at the online meeting last Friday. I think Danielle has sent out, and I think she copied you on it, Paul, the contact list of, so that we can get phone numbers and email addresses. So it's being pushed out to as many people as we can contact and get in contact with that are an appropriate type of business for this type of service.
Okay.
So
I may have missed, I've not seen a content that other email, but just curious because I saw, was it Rose Workman who sent things out on behalf of Chamber, and it just, I mean, this is something that has an impact. So hopefully Danielle has sent it to her or will send it to her, so she sends it out on her blast list, so that appropriate businesses can take advantage of this.
right. And on the Friday call, Liz, who's the president of the chamber, Rose, who's the secretary, and I think Rob may be the vice chair, but all three of those people were on the call on Friday and have been for the last 2 weeks. So yes,
Okay.
It's not at all an exclusive club. It's being pushed out, and the more the merrier, up to our budget limit.
Yep.
And then on the second report on navigation, Danielle had filled out the initial information. Tracy provided an update, and the reason I sent it out as a separate email is because there was a user error or technology bereft user on my end. Danielle did the document on a Mac, and I can read it on my phone, but could not take Tracy's post and paste it into your form. So, but that was the most updated information on the navigation piece. Basically, I think it speaks for itself unless there are questions about it. I don't want to just read what you've already read or speak to what you've already read.
I'll be glad to add it to the form. It's easy enough for me to do, and I can do
Okay.
that. So
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll continue to do the update on those forms then, Paul, if you suggest. So, and push them out regularly, not just wait for a meeting. Okay, if nothing else on that, then moving on to new business facade grants. Tom, you had mentioned that you did get a grant application from Bob Nowak.
Yes, I have a facade grant application that is complete by our standards. I have 2 bids, I have drawings, I have pictures. I have his W-9, and I have the application. To summarize what he's planning to do is the property that he owns on Main Street. I don't know the exact address. Let me find it. 114 North Main Street. This is the former location of the Legacy Haircut Studio, is the building that he owns. He is proposing to completely redo the facade, take all the brick down, change the arrangement of doors and windows, take off the awning that's there. I mean, the whole front is coming off the building. One of the things I've checked for is to make sure that this doesn't include any interior work, because that's not part of our grant. The other thing, and I did talk to him later today, and I asked him specifically, does this include any roofing, which we are now including, but he said no. Maybe 3 years down the road, he might be looking at doing something. He said his roof's actually in pretty decent shape. So he has gotten 2 bids. The lowest of the 2 bids is, can I mention who it's from?
Sure.
Sure, it's from Easter Day Construction. Is $49,850, $49,850. And they're in reading through this, everything that's included in the proposal is facade related. There's nothing with flooring or HVAC or plumbing or anything like that, which we wouldn't cover. So it's basically, he's just going to take the whole front face off and redo it. If you can envision that building now, the door is located in the center with two big windows on either side. the new plan would be for the door to be on the left-hand side, the north side of the building, and then 2 large windows. And of course, this awning would be removed and that type of thing. So he's requesting that. He's aware that we do allow up to $30,000 in a given year during a 5-year period. And so, you know, I think I've got everything that I need on my end as like I said, I do have a higher estimate from a different contractor. And so obviously he's free to choose who he wants to go with, but we're going to take the lower of the 2 bids. So that's where I'm at, is I have a proposal for a facade grant in the total amount of $49,850. And we would pay half of that, which would be $29,925. It looks like my math was right.
Tom, were you,
Sure. That's right. Yeah.
Tom, this is Rich. A question, because when we had talked earlier about this, you weren't clear that the second bid did not include interior work, and so it may not have been a comparable scope of work for both. Was that clarified, or are you comfortable with
Yes,
the fact?
yes. That's what I was saying. This includes nothing interior.
Oh, the second bid, though. The lowest bid does not, but was the other comparable bid including interior work? And would it? And I guess the question in my mind is, would it be lower if it did not include that interior work? Does that make sense? Or
he does have one. The first bid did have drywall and hardwood floor refinish, hardwood floor existing to match the existing, and an acoustic drop ceiling. So there was some finishes in there, but the other bid is $26,000 more than this one.
Okay.
So
Well, how
how
much was that work? Didn't that up to 26,000 that he, how much was the work that shouldn't have been included? What was the total on that?
I don't have that. It wasn't broken out that way.
I think I agree. I think we should get it broken out because it may, we're not comparing apples to apples. It doesn't sound like.
Okay. Okay.
The other question I have is, what's the business purpose? Is there a business purpose?
In my opinion, this is the true meaning of a facade grant. He's redoing the whole facade. I mean, the whole front of the building.
No, I know, but is it going to be used for personal space?
I assume that. I don't know that, Sue. I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, I think that, because I heard a rumor that maybe it was, so then I wonder, okay, does that really something we cover or should cover?
It's a TIF property, and with the improvements to the TIF property, presumably the appraised value would increase, and then the TIF, the property taxes would increase, which would come back to the TIF, whether it's used for personal purposes or I don't know.
Well, the tax rate would be different. Well, I guess not. It'd still be zoned commercial.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Well,
you
Tom,
would
this
like
is
me?
Paul.
Yes, go ahead.
You're going to go back and ask them
Yeah.
to break out the interior information anyway. You might as well ask him what type of retail or what type of commercial he plans it to be. It doesn't obligate him, but at least we understand it, whether it's rentals or general retail. But that's a fair question, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Well, plus the, Jonathan, didn't the new ordinance say you can't have residential on the first floor in the commercial district?
Yeah, that's right. We did make that change.
So we need to verify.
I don't know the building. Is there residential in the back part?
And on top, I think they're up on top. I think there's apartments upstairs.
I don't know if anybody else can see on messages. Kevin Berger is on the meeting from Easter Day Construction and commented It would be for an art display studio, not residential.
That's what I had heard, but I did not have that confirmed.
I did not either. I didn't want to say anything.
Kevin also raised the concern, if nobody else can see it, that, now we've read the low bid as a part of public record, so it's kind of a concern. I understand the importance of clarifying, but if possible, I don't know if that's broken out already somewhere at all, Tom. That's gonna be a tough situation just to figure that one out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, well, I can ask, is Bob, is he listening in? Are you able to hear him, Jonathan?
I didn't see his name on here at all. I don't think he's on.
Okay.
Check. Yeah, if he did already have that maybe and just didn't share it with you, that would be fine, I think. But right, the concern would just be having the other contractor adjust their bid to undercut what was read.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Just want to try and be fair.
Well, that wouldn't be shared with the other contractor, would it?
It's public
Well,
record. This is recorded.
Oh,
It will be in about a day.
So,
oh,
I'm just trying to think if there's a way to move ahead without having to wait for another month to approve this project, if it's something you'd like to get started on. Can we authorize Tom to review the questions and proceed with the lowest bid for this project? And again, as long as the use is consistent with zoning, we can ask the question, but I don't know that our facade grant program says it has to be, it specifies what the business use has to be.
I guess one of my concerns is there is a back part of this building. Do we know, is that an apartment now? What's behind the hair salon place? I mean, I don't know. I've never been in there. And
Yeah,
I guess what I'm getting at is that if that's residential already on the first floor and we have this provision, no residential on the first floor, are we opening up a can of worms for him or what?
Well, if it was
Okay,
residential,
I've got Kevin's comments again here. He says there's no kitchen and there's a restroom, but not a full bathroom. So apparently it's not a residence in the back right now.
Okay.
so do we want to pass this till next month, or is there some Solomon-like suggestion for how to move forward?
Once you've read the one bid, it's kind of hard to go back and say you're going to ask the other guy to resubmit anything.
well, I think, real quick, was the drywall and hardwood part of Easter Day or the other ones, Tom?
No, the other one.
The other one.
Easter Day doesn't have anything other than just facade things.
So my assumption would be that that other bid person figured he had to tear up some of the floor and the drywall on the interior and either to do the exterior facade. So in a sense, that's still repairing, it's above and beyond what is expected. So I don't know, it would still be more than, I still think you should go with Easter Day's bid. You opened that up, we talked about it, but I'm not a voting person, but I think you should carry on how it was presented.
Yeah.
Does you not being a voting person prohibit you from making a motion?
I'll make.
I do think that too.
Rich, if you want, I'll be glad to make a motion that we accept Easterday's bid. And just to clarify, Mr. Uhas's math instructor wasn't that good, and it would be 24,925.
We're all over that, Sally. Right on.
Well, it's the walk. Never mind. I won't go there.
I think you wrote a bad 9. It wasn't.
So there's a motion.
Oh, yeah.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second for that motion?
This is Paul.
I'll
I
second
second
it.
that motion.
Okay, so Sally has made a motion to approve the facade grant for the Bob Nowak's building at, is it 114 North Main Street? With the low bid of $49,850 at 50%. So that motion's been seconded by Paul. Any further discussion? We'll move the question. Paul, could you take the roll, please?
Certainly. Tom?
Yes.
Sue?
I'm sorry, did you say Sue?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Sally
Yes.
and Rich.
Yes,
Okay, the motion has been
Okay,
passed.
thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. The Liz had been approached and asked to provide a quote to do the flower boxes in the commercial districts on Main Street and Lakeshore Drive. Typically, those are supported or paid for by the merchants who have businesses in those buildings. And so Liz had provided a quote for a maximum amount of $4,200. Now, she extended the scope of work to business locations that have not participated in having her do the work in the past. For example, the Cove puts out flower boxes and does other things, but they do that themselves. And also the Collins building has not participated. And there may be a couple of others selectively that have not, that do have either flower boxes or flower pots in the front. So the proposal is a maximum of $4,200. The reason the bid was solicited is because it's not believed that the business owners are going to be in a financial situation to do this. And come June or July, what will the appearance be for those districts? So I circulated a late version of the, or late this afternoon, I circulated a copy of the quote. Ideas, comments, suggestions? Went to the town council, Jonathan, and if I remember correctly, they basically kicked it to CRC, saying it was in the commercial districts. Would CRC consider paying for this?
Well, this is Sue. I'm sorry. Did Jonathan say yes? I mean, interrupt.
Yep, that's all I said, Sue. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I've been a big proponent, and I know when you go into other downtown, small downtowns, that they have taken the approach to be had to have flower baskets and to be consistent in their design, color, and that's Indiana Main Street and other community organizations have said that that's a positive influence on shoppers and people who drive through town. So I think it's critical, and well, it's important. Maybe not critical, but it's important. We have always paid for them ourselves, and we don't have the money. I do, my one comment, she did mention it in her proposal, is the theme of colors and flowers, because in the past, sometimes it's been a little more greenery than most of us like. I've talked to several merchants and they definitely want it to be more flowering annuals, brightly colored. So they're, you know, they stand out in the boxes and planters. With that specific being said, I definitely think it's something to uplift the town and the people when they come back.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Other comments or questions?
Rich, this is
My
Paul.
concern is, go ahead, Paul.
I just want a reference point. So Elizabeth expanded this out. How much was it before that they that the merchants normally picked up down in the downtown district? Do you know?
She did not have an answer for that question. She didn't go back
Oh,
and
okay.
reconstruct.
No worries. I was just curious. That's all.
I have no documentation on it. I had heard a number bandied around of about $3,000. But again, I don't have, that isn't from Liz, that was from someone else. And
Okay.
as Sue said, it wasn't a coherent plan. It was sort of a, everybody does their own thing with her or on their own. So,
All right.
Tom?
Yeah, my concern comes down to the fact that even in Elizabeth's letter to us, and how Rich prefaced this and what Sue has said, is that this is normally paid by each business individually. To me, this is an operational cost. And as you know, CRC, we're not permitted to pay operational costs. So from that standpoint, I have a problem with this, in that I don't see that it fits the criteria that we are guided by.
I guess I have a backup on that one, Tom. I don't know. I don't know if it is operational or not. It could fall under all the facade stuff in a sense for each building because it's on the front. It's something that's done more for the people on the outside than the people on the inside. Do they need it to operate? No. So that's where I somewhat question whether it's operational or not. But
Karen, I had the same thoughts, except on the facade grant, they're really capital improvements. And that's a distinction here. I mean, my personal belief is I think it's a good idea, but I think Tom has a good point. If it's an operational expense, is it something we can do? I'm not sure.
Well, okay, I don't know how other towns do it, but I know other towns pay for it, have paid for it. Another town called Rochester, the town in Michigan I'm aware of. So I don't see it as an operational cost. I see it as an aesthetic.
It's a quality of life.
It's the aesthetics of the town. I don't see it as a business thing. Some of those, I'm trying to think, some of the planters are, more extended toward the sidewalk. So I don't, it's just a nice thing to do. And I just think it's, I don't see it at all as an operational expense.
Is it a Christmas light expense?
Well, we pay that. Same kind of thing.
This is Sally, and I know like Logan Sport does flowers in their city. Rochester does. I would say it's sort of like the Christmas tree.
Well, it's exactly like that. It's the, just bringing the cheer to the different areas.
The question I have is, we don't know how those other cities fund this. Town council could do it. It's the use of TIF funds. And again, but we did use TIP funds for the Christmas lights and banners, I believe, didn't we?
We
So-
did for the Christmas lights for the that tree in that park.
Heritage Park.
Yeah, Heritage Park.
But didn't we have the contract to do the lights on the light poles? The
Yeah,
wreaths?
the wreaths. Yes, we hope to do that.
All right. Any other comments or suggestions or ideas at this point? Is there a motion such that pending approval from our legal counsel, we would fund such a project up to a maximum of $4,200?
Yes, I make a motion that we fund Elizabeth's request for $4,200 to plant flowers in our baskets and other vessels in front of the various businesses in the commercial district, pending approval through legal.
This is Sally, and I would second that.
Okay. And I guess I'm the one who said it, so it was my mistake, but it may cost us more for legal than it will for flowers.
Good point.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
Rich, was
Okay.
there any, did you have any further input as to what the town park meant?
I'm sorry, what the town,
Are there planter boxes along the, what, did you get a feel what town park meant?
no, not for certain. I did not see a diagram or a plan.
Rich, would you like us to, remove the legal from that?
No, if the motion passes, I'll see if I can get a quick call, or maybe even consult Mr. Clevenger as opposed to Phil Facenda. So, Mr. Jim Clevenger. So there's a motion that's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, Paul, could you take the roll, please?
One more question, Rich, just for
Sure.
clarification, and maybe it's the obvious. This is a one-time event that we're looking to do, just as the town has helped businesses with some grants, and we did this online for some businesses as well. We're looking at this as a one-time. It's a one-time event, not the beginning of us doing this, right?
That is my understanding. It's a one-off proposal. It's not a contract for more than the one term.
Okay.
So any other questions? If not, Paul, could you take the roll, please?
Right. I'll start with you, Rich.
Yes.
Sally.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Sue.
Yes.
Tom.
No.
The motion is passed on a majority.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, the next item on the agenda, town and CRC funding swaps. As I'll try and get the brief history on this, as most of you know, the town passed a resolution, I think it was 2020-005, to fund a small business grant program to assist during this, our current pandemic crisis. It was a grant program that was put together pretty quickly, but Jonathan did a lot of the legwork and the development on this. It was fast tracked. It went to the town. I think the proposed resolution was drafted in one day. It went to the town council the next day, and the following day the applications went out. In the following 2 or 3 days, the applications were reviewed, and within a week, the grants were funded. One of the things in the proposal, and I think Tom circulated it and highlighted, was it section 3, Tom, of the
That is correct.
Ordinance, if I can, which, let's see if, sorry, it's MCEDC. We don't want to go back
It's
there.
on the first page of the resolution.
Yeah, I opened the Word document and I saw MCEDC, and it was not, I don't want to go there again. You want to,
I've got it, Rich, if you want me to share it.
yeah, that's fine, Jonathan. I keep, the MCEDC nightmare just keeps coming back in my screen, so. Go ahead. Or Tom, you had it up.
Well, I had sent it to everybody if they didn't have a chance. Oh, there we go. Now I see that on the screen.
Oh, Jonathan sharing it. Okay, good. So is section, was it 3, Tom? Was it?
That's correct.
And the wording of it, again, it's too small for me to read on that screen.
Do you want me to read it, Rich?
Yeah, if you want to read it, and then we can talk about
That
what
got bigger, a little bit bigger.
So it's section 3 there. It says total available funds for this program will be up to $150,000 from a variety of funds, including but not limited to funding swap agreements with the Culver Redevelopment Commission, loans and unused or unexpended funds from other available funding sources under the control of the town council, as allowed by the Indiana State Board of Accounts, and/or additional appropriations from the general fund balance. Final funding sources will be approved by the Grant Review Committee, consisting of Council President, Redevelopment Commission President, Clerk Treasurer, and Town Manager.
Okay. And as I explained to Tom earlier, there were no, on behalf of CRC or anyone, we did not make any commitments firmly on any type of funding coming from CRC without their authorization, but we would explore if there were ways that CRC, since again, this is just revisiting the bond program, CRC can't get into the business of lending businesses money. They can do a economic development bond. Takes a long time to do, and it's an expensive proposition. The town wanted to move quickly in doing something. So one of the ideas we floated was, were there expenses that legitimately CRC could fund that would be economic development, because whether allowed or not, the grants were economic development for our businesses. So were there things that could be shifted, that CRC would pick up some of the things, the commitments that the town made? Before we get into specifics, Tom, did you want to talk more about that?
About my concerns?
Yeah, your concerns are about yes.
Okay. My concerns are, I don't know, are the other members, are you guys able to see this on your screens?
Yes, I can.
Paul
Yes.
and Sally?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, my concern is that the second sentence, or the second line of the first sentence, funds including but not limited to funding swap agreements with Culver Redevelopment Commission. Funds including but not limited to funding. It sounds like we've already approved funding swap agreements with the Redevelopment Commission. That's one thing. The other thing is the final sentence says final funding sources, which to me implies Culver Redevelopment Commission would be one of the sources from what was in sentence number 1, will be approved by the grant review committee consisting of town council, CRC, treasurer, and town manager. So, I mean, is this, it sounds to me like we're already approving this fund swap, and the final say with this isn't CRC, it's town council, president, redevelopment, clerk, treasurer, and town manager. So I just have a problem because to me, the words are important the way it's written.
And I understand that, but as I told you at the beginning, we had made no such agreement. Perhaps the wording is not correct. And that was a problem with.
And this is a resolution that was adopted by, and not only that, the money's already been distributed.
And no CRC monies have been committed to it.
But CRC monies are going to be asked to be committed to it.
Correct. But no decision has been made on that yet. So I guess, we can ask
They can ask, and
we can ask the town council to amend and reword that section. But the fact of the matter is that no CRC funds have been committed to the project yet. And we were going to discuss that at this evening's meeting.
Yeah, if I could jump in for, oops, sorry, this is Jonathan. As the drafter of said resolution, if I could jump in for a second, just to kind of explain it. As Rich said, we were trying to move pretty quickly, and at one point I did start trying to say 20,000 here and 30,000 there and 40,000 there, and see if we could come up with a plan. But as the four of us discussed it, the language was intended to be broad to allow us to move forward with the reviews, get the funds out there. And I think as we discussed it with Karen, Jenny, Rich, and myself, we thought that there are the existing balances that the town has are sufficient to cover it, and that's kind of the backstop, and that we would then look at rainy day funds and redevelopment commission funds. And even, we explored loans from the water or sewer or other utilities. Like, nothing was off the table is really how that was intended to come across. If the wording's a little sloppy, that's on me and I apologize, but it was really intended to say, basically, we know we have these funds in our existing reserves, and we're going to come up with the formal plan of how much comes from each area, honestly, after the funds were awarded. We knew we had the minimum and that we would just figure it out. And by including the Redevelopment Commission president, the intent was that Rich would put it on the agenda for the next meeting, get input from the commission, and then bring it back to the four of us.
Hey, Jonathan, this is Paul. First, I'm glad because I listened in on the town council meeting, and I'd hate to think that I'm glad you had access to funds that you committed, because everyone who went through and applied for that $136,000, wasn't told that it's caveated with a little asterisk once we get the money. So I'm glad the town had the money to do that. I don't know enough about what CRC is allowed to do. I'd hate to see us, because of a proclamation, that we've committed ourselves to something we legally can't do. Whether funds are used and they go into an operational bucket or forgiving some operational expense, which we can't do. So, I'd like to understand more, and
sure.
instead of being a co-signer on a blank check. That's all.
Yeah. So the next thing would be what we have in mind by an actual funding swap. So that would be CRC would not be funding directly that this program. by doing a funding swap, you would take on a project that the town is currently budgeted to pay for out of our general fund that we know the CRC can take on. So we came up with a few ideas. I'm sure we could find more. I can get into some of those if you want. I mean,
Right. Jonathan, why don't you mention the Main Street Water Sewer project,
okay.
which basically is something within the scope of what CRC can pay for. We've already committed $105,000 toward that project. I'll just go ahead. The total match on that project with the INDOT funding is $340,000. The town had committed to the difference between the 105 from CRC, and that would be their contribution. What I would ask us to consider is if we did that as a 50-50 split, so the town funds 170, CRC funds 170, it's a legitimate expense for CRC to fund that infrastructure improvement in a commercial district of town, that transfers some of the cash necessary indirectly that the town would have to come up with, or did come up with, to fund the program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the town would still take on the full funding responsibility for the grant program. CRC would just pick up an additional portion of that South Main stormwater construction project.
This is Paul. I understand it a little better now. And I also understand that COVID, this is only part one of what's happening to us across the country. And it's going to continue, just things are going to reverberate. In your example, Rich, I know it was off the cuff, but that's $170,000 for $136,000 expense out to cover it. So I understand how, money's fungible, and if you cover one expense on one side that you're legally allowed to cover, it frees the town up to do something else. Is the intent tonight to say, this is the concept, we're going to send you more information because I'd like to see how this just affects our cash flow? I'd like to think about this. Or are you looking for a vote?
Well, first of all, on clarification, CRC has already committed $105,000 to that Main Street water sewer and repaving project.
Right.
So if we were to go from 105 to arbitrarily 170, what we would be picking up is an additional $65,000. Not.
I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought you said 105 plus 170.
I may have misspoken. No, so the difference would be about $65,000 if that were the project that we agreed to do. It's within the scope of what we're permitted to do from a cash flow perspective. If you look at our cash flow statement, I don't think $65,000 is going to put us short on funding anything else. Another idea that came up and was discussed, MCEDC is something we already fund. It's something we can fund. This year, the way it was budgeted is the town is doing 10, and CRC is doing 10,000 toward MCEDC. It would not be against any regulations for the CRC to fund the 20 as opposed to just our 10.
Okay.
So those were the ideas, two of the ideas that had been floated and not decided.
Okay. So what do you guys want us to do tonight?
I guess what more information would make you comfortable with making a decision on it would be what I would ask the board.
I thought this was just clarification. I thought this was just clarification. I didn't know we're having to vote on or make any decisions tonight. Are we being asked something specific, or is this just what this was talking about, the intent of this paragraph?
Well, I would suggest we would be asking that we do something like this, whether it's tonight or in the near future at our next meeting. It's not something we can do without the approval of the board or the commission.
Right, exactly. But I guess I just thought this was Tom needing a clarification on what this meant. I didn't know this was supposed to.
It was on the agenda before Tom circulated the copy.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so Jonathan and I had put it on the agenda to discuss what options might be available if we decide to do this. And Tom raised the question about the language of the resolution, and it's, you know, it could have been wordsmithed better or more clearly to reflect what the real intent was.
Rich,
Go ahead, Sally.
you want a motion?
Well,
Understand the concept, and I guess I'm not 100% sure on the actual number of dollars that need to be submitted, but I would be willing to make a motion that we, at the CRC, go up to 50,000 additional funds on the, which would be a third of what the town has committed. Additional funds toward the water sewer project that you mentioned, so that there
okay.
would then have more funds to fund the grant program.
So
Sally,
does the town, does the town need more money to fund the business grant program? Are we saying the town doesn't have the resources to do it right now, or?
no, as Jonathan said, the town has the resources committed to do it. And this is a thought process in my head, I won't speak for anyone else, but this is supporting the TIF district and the businesses in our TIF districts. The Redevelopment Commission is the organization that gets the TIF dollars to support those businesses. And we have significant dollars on deposit, uncommitted. The town has enough resources to do it, but is there a reason that CRC should not have an active participation in helping to support this in an indirect way? That's the question in my mind, and that's what I would propose. That's what I'd suggest we do. So Sally has a motion that the Redevelopment Commission increase its contribution to the Main Street water and stormwater sewer project by $50,000. So our current commitment is 105, so our commitment would go from 105 to 155. Is that correct, Sally? Just to me.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's a motion that's been made. Is there a second for that motion? The chair will second that motion. So is there further discussion?
So, Rich, this is Paul.
Yes.
This is the only time that or maybe this is to you, Jonathan. This is the only time that we're going to come and do this. I wish I'm hesitant because I wish I had more information. I wish I knew more about this ahead of time to think about it and go through it. You're right. When I look at the cash flow statement, even with everything on hand, we'll go from $1.4 million to $1 million by the end of this year. And is this what this town council feel confident that this is the one thing that they need now? Or I guess with so much unknown out there, I'm.
Yeah, I guess the best I can answer that right now is just, I think as Rich alluded to, if you look at balance sheets, the redevelopment commission one is very healthy. Town is doing well too, but probably I think the way State Board of Accounts recommends you look at it is the number of months that you have in reserve where you could operate without new income. And in that regard, CRC is ahead of the general fund. So I think with that in mind, as Rich said, I think I was trying to do the math in my head. I think of the 19 awards that went out, 18 of them were in the TIF district. It did seem like something worth at least exploring. And like he said, and I said earlier, we can definitely do it out of the funds from the town, but given the circumstances and like you say, just kind of not knowing what the next 3 months will look like, I'm honestly as much concerned about future revenue and how that will be affected over the next 6 months to a year as much as expenses. I mean, we're seeing bad news on both ends of that. So I think, this is definitely a project. We know the Main Street one, the CRC can fund. There's no concern about that. And if it would make people feel more comfortable, I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions or give more information over the next few weeks and review at a later meeting if that's okay with Karen. I don't know if she needs kind of the answers on that prior to that for accounting purposes, or if we can hold out that long.
Sure.
I'd like to take a step back. I'll withdraw my second on that motion. And we will put together a package, get it out to CRC with information well in advance of our next meeting. I mean, there is an urgency to do this. It's not like the town doesn't have the funds to do it. I think in my mind, the equitable and the right thing to do is that CRC have participate in it. But since there is an urgency on it, and some members would like time to study the issue and consider more information, I'll withdraw my second and suggest we put together a concrete proposal for our next meeting.
This is Paul. One last question to Jonathan. Does that, if us not acting on it between now and the middle of May, will that cripple anything with the town, or will that cripple anything with the businesses that have gotten the grants?
Definitely not. I mean, the funds are already out. I'll defer to Karen. I don't know if Karen Heim wants to respond as far as just knowing the accounting, where things are coming from for sure.
Yeah, all the checks are written and we have the balances in the general fund to support the expenses. So yeah, I'm totally supportive of you guys taking some time and thinking things through. I think that's prudent at this point.
And then in May, we call the ball on this. Okay.
Sounds fine.
Okay, is there consensus on that? At least there's no, the motion has died for lack of a second. So, that was the last item on the agenda. We can go through if any members have any new input. Sally, anything?
Not really.
Okay. Sue?
Nothing.
Karen?
I'm good.
Tom?
I'm all good, thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I'm all out.
You're all out?
I'm all out of input.
Out of speed or?
Well, I have about a dozen more things on the agenda that I'd like to.
Cute.
I have nothing further to say or add. So we will put together more information to bring back at the next meeting concerning this topic. And
You're a good boy.
is there? Well, thank you, Sally.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I'd be willing to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Sue.
I'll second.
Wow.
Okay, so Paul, do you want to call the roll on that? Sue made the motion, Sally seconded.
Okay, actually, I think Tom seconded on that one. I'll start with you.
Oh,
Rich.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I'll take that as a yes. Sally,
Yes.
Paul, yes. Karen, you always get counted on this.
Oh, sure, yes.
Yeah. In the case you don't want to end the meeting. And Sue
Yeah, right.
and Tom.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you all. Our next meeting is the 18th of May, I believe. So say, it's easy for me to say, stay and healthy. Good night, Gracie.
Rich.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.